The views expressed by the host of this podcast are not opinion-based or for entertainment purposes. They are actually facts and truth, no matter if other people like it or not. It is the Detroit sports truth, and nothing can ever stop it from being correct. Hey there, Detroit sports fanatics, and welcome to episode 188 on the Detroit Sports Truth on Spreaker on a special Saturday night. I'm Taylor Phillips, and I'm with my top co-host on the podcast, Ed Smith. Thanks so much for being on here. How are you? I can't hear you. Ed? Damn it! All right, let's start over. Hey there, Detroit sports fanatics, and welcome to episode 188 of the Detroit Sports Truth on Spreaker on a special Saturday night. I'm Taylor Phillips, and I'm with my top co-host on the podcast, Ed Smith. Thanks so much for being on here. How are you?
Well, after that thrilling, entertaining, and exciting game between the Cardinals and the Packers, I'm pretty pumped and jacked right now. But let's contain my excitement. I'm going to contain my excitement and my emotion and my adrenaline. Just get through this episode as calm and focused as possible. So happy to be back on the program. That's right, second in the quick short amount of days since recovering from my head cold illness, but I'm ready to go.
All right, let's do this. Let's kick it off with the Lions first.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
It has been heard that the Lions have decided to keep Jim Caldwell. That the news broke Friday, I think. Yeah, it was Friday, and Bob Quinn, to some truthful fans out there, made a mistake. But Jim Caldwell is here to stay after going 11-6 in 2014 and 7-9 in 2015. Jim Caldwell has won 18 games and has lost 15 games total with the Lions, regular season and playoffs. 18 and 15 the last 2 years now, 2 seasons as head coach of the Detroit Lions. Still a winning record overall, but his in-game decisions really cost them both seasons. And Jim Caldwell was thrilled that to hear that he was still the head coach, and we could already interpret the players' reaction to it. I'm pretty sure they're glad to keep him leading them somewhere. Who knows where? But some are happy and some are not so thrilled about it. But his inept in-game decisions have proved costly, Ed.
Yeah, there's no other way around it. Say what you want about his winning record here or anywhere else. Again, it should be remiss to remind all of you that, part of that was due to the fact he had Peyton Manning's coattails to ride on. You saw what happened once he was no longer able to compete in Indy, just how much of a coach Caldwell is. And then, like I said, like you mentioned, Taylor, the decision-making in multiple games that Caldwell has done in the past couple of years here, it's really a bit mind-boggling a little bit to see some fans that would be upset if he was let go in any capacity. Whereas I'm thinking, like, no, this dude's a bad coach. If you want to see your team move up to the next level, you want them to take a first step up and get rid of their head coach. I think that's what any competent team that wants to take that next step forward would do. So, but then again, this is a team, this is a fan base that's been so used to losing over and over and over again that after getting that glimpse of the playoffs last year, maybe they're buying into the fool's gold a little bit. But also, you have to take into account that Bob Quinn, maybe he felt, since this was his first big major action as the new general manager, he didn't want to alienate one or both of two key groups here. The ownership, who publicly, where it was known publicly, they wanted to retain Caldwell, but at the end they left that decision up to Quinn. And I feel the players, if not all, but at least definitely is a good portion of the players. I'm sure Calvin Johnson was in that group that wanted to see Caldwell return also, and that's another factor you have to consider. Since you bring back if you despite if you and I or other people may think it might have been the right thing to do, if you got rid of Jim Caldwell, who's to say you basically gave away your one of if not your best legit shot, and tried to convince Calvin Johnson to come back for another year. So that's another thing to consider in this type of situation. So I think Quinn felt where any other type of situation, because remember, this is a team that got rid of its president and general manager previous year. If you're put in a situation, you would expect, hey, we got to get a new head coach, establish a new culture, and all that sort of type of stuff. But knowing how ownership wanted to keep Caldwell, and I'm sure some players wanted to keep Caldwell as well, and also wanting to make sure that to make everything look as pleasing as possible to Calvin Johnson was merely suggesting the mere thought of retirement. I think Bob Quinn was put into a corner here and had no other choice but to go with this decision.
Yeah, I was going to mention everybody in the Lions organization, the owners, the players, the other coaches, they wanted Jim Caldwell to stay, despite what a percentage of fans think of him, whether they like him or not. Everybody in the organization and in the media as well think that Jim Caldwell is still good enough to remain head coach of the Lions, and that's just completely or totally going the wrong way. And that's just the Lions right there. They're an inept organization in the National Football League.
Yeah, and this is one of the reasons why. And you wonder why, you're still not able to move forward after all these years and all the bad, horrific things that you've witnessed under the tenures of not just Matt Millen, but also Martin Mayhew as well. This is the reason why, when you've felt some type of peer pressure from your already backwards way of defeatist attitude amongst your fans, and maybe even some of your players. I'm not afraid to say that. To where it forces you to keep a person where, yeah, he may be popular, may be a good guy, but at the end, he's just not good at doing his job. And if you're not good at doing your job, you should be let go, period. So I don't care if the Lions fans or the ownership or even some of the fans feel some type of way, but just calling a spade, Jim Caldwell is a bad head coach, and he has no right to coach this team. But I think Bob Quinn understood the other side of things, where you just got in here, you don't want to alienate anybody, get them on your side keep them on your side as much as possible. But I think he had no other choice but to keep Jim Caldwell in this situation.
Yeah, I was going to mention everybody, starting with the owners, thought that the 7-9 2015 season was a fluke, starting with that 1-7 start, 1-7 first half thereof. The Lions were trying to prove with that 6-2 second half of the season that they were better than that. As normally, their objective on their own is to win, but we wanted them to keep tanking for a top draft pick. Unfortunately, they didn't, and the Lions ended up with a 16th round draft pick, which appears to be, according to Mel Kiper, Alabama defensive lineman Jarran Reed at number 16, and you still needed a part of a defensive line, and I think you got another one.
Yeah, I mean, I've stated long before that, especially like since you lost Ndamukong Suh and you lost Nick Fairley. Granted, you did. I think then we also lose C.J. Mosley as well.
Yep.
Right, you lose those three guys. Forget Suh, of course, being the biggest commodity you lost. That defensive line was going to suffer some weaknesses, and that was evident in my view. In this past season, Chloe Nada, let's be honest, the same day where it was found out that Suh was leaving, or shortly thereafter, that's when the strings were set in motion to bring Nada there as a quote unquote, you could say is with air quotation quotes, as a replacement for Suh. That hasn't quite worked out, but the saving graces here has been Ziggy Ansah and Devin Taylor. Having good protective seasons and getting to the quarterback. Other than that, your defensive line has not been very helpful at all. So, if it means if any quality defensive lineman is there when the Lions pick at 16, I don't care who it is. As long as it's reasonable, and I've seen some good film on this player, and he had a good combine, a pro day, or whatever. I'm taking him because you need to make this part of the Lions' defense a well-known strength again, or at least close to what it was when Suh was here. So if it means taking another defensive lineman in the first round, I'm all for it. It don't have to be Robert Condici, but it can be damn sure close.
Pretty close indeed. And Jarran Reed seemed to be good enough for you just about equivalently. Tell me and the audience more about Jarran Reed, if you will, please.
Well, Jarran Reed, of course, as you all witnessed, was a big part of another part of the Alabama Crimson Tide continuing their dynasty. There's a reason why he's getting praised, because he was part of a massive monster defensive line that was able to stuff running plays, kill them right in the background, and if at all possible, provide good pressure on the quarterback. That was utilized greatly in some of their earlier wins. I think most notably the Michigan State win leading up to the championship game. Didn't have quite much success defensively for Alabama because, of course, Clemson dropped 40, but at the end, they made stops when it mattered most. And were able to help, like I said, help Nick Saban win another national title. So when you have the aura, so to speak, of fresh off of a Nick Saban coached national championship, your grade's going to be high already on a lot of draft quote-unquote experts boards. So I would expect the same here for Reed. If he's there, sure, I'd welcome him aboard with open arms and, work on his weaknesses, establish his strengths. But if not, and somebody else is there of equal or even better quality, it's a win-win for me, because if we get a defensive line in the first round, I would feel better about our situation for next year.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think I would take Jarran Reed as well to fill the defensive line. And speaking of the NFL, we go to the playoffs. The New England Patriots beat the Kansas City Chiefs 27-20. Do you have a recap of that?
Yeah, I was able to watch this game earlier today. It was a bit of a slow start, early on, but once New England found its groove, it was really no looking back from that point. I think they led wire to wire They never trailed or were tied at any point during this game. Tom Brady did what he had to do, whether it be finding Robert Gronkowski for a couple of touchdowns or even doing things himself with a rushing touchdown of his own. That might, by the way, marks his now sixth career, I believe, rushing touchdown in the postseason. So Tom Brady has shown you, like, even at the stage of his career, even though with all the accomplishments, the Super Bowl rings, the legendary drives, the plays that he's made with his arm, he can also do some things on the ground as well. So this is another example. Arizona, Kansas City, even though Alex Smith did a good a job as he could this year, being a game manager, and by the way, in the regular season, being the NFL leader for all players in terms of rushing yards on third down, and being one of the top overall rushing quarterbacks in terms of yards gained for this season, only behind, of course, the obvious ones, Cam Newton, Russell Wilson, Tyrod Taylor. You saw that again a little bit in this game. Smith using his legs in key situations to help keep plays alive or get first downs. But at the end, it just wasn't much to overcome what New England was able to do in terms of getting to players, making open field tackles, and of course, causing complete disruption. Smith had threw the ball, 43, 44, at least 40 plus times today, making it a career high, and he only had half of those incompletions. So, not a very good productive day for Alex Smith in terms of through the air. And once you got that out of the way, they basically took away Kansas City's only hope of trying to have a chance of winning this game. So, fairly easy, even though the score might indicate it. This was a nice, clean victory. Slightly pulling away for New England, and something to definitely get them ready for next week, whether it be hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers or in Denver to take on the Broncos.
All right. And now let's talk about the more interesting game that just recently ended in a crazy yet dramatic fashion. The Arizona Cardinals beat the Green Bay Packers in overtime 26-20 on a Fitzgerald 76-yard reception that led to a 4-yard touchdown run by Fitzgerald right after Jeff Janis's Hail Mary touchdown reception from Aaron Rodgers from 41 yards out to tie it at 20 as time expired and force overtime, and the crazy coin flip in between.
This was, I thought coming into tonight, nothing would ever top the craziness and insanity that we all saw the previous weekend involving Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. Man, this one was pretty close. And might have done even better, and it could be remembered more positively because there wasn't no case of egregious, violent headshots or unruly fans or just dirty play or teams barking at each other back and forth. There wasn't any of that. There was no ugliness of that sort in this one. This was two highly competitive teams giving their all in a high-risk, high-gamble situation where it was going to be win or go home. And both put it out on the line. It's quite worth noting. The last time that these two teams played each other in the playoffs, it was right there in Arizona, and it was a game that, of course, ended in a walk-off touchdown in overtime. Now, granted, that was a far different score. That was a 51-45 shootout that was ended on a defensive fumble, I believe, that recovered for a touchdown by Arizona. But this one, I think you could argue this was a better game, just due to the sheer amount of insane plays and moments and twists and turns that took place. Whether it be Carson Palmer's own internal struggles, his story about who up to this point never won a playoff game in his whole entire career, finally got that done, but it wasn't easy. He threw pretty much a back-breaking interception late in the third quarter, came back around, was able to overcome all that, helped get his team position to take the lead, scored on a touchdown. It wasn't easy, though. He threw two interceptions, like I mentioned, including the one in the end zone late in the third. But, Arizona comes back, scores a touchdown, and then Green Bay, on their next possession, with about, 5 minutes or so left, it's a 3-and-out, and instead of punting the ball, now great, because they only had one timeout left, and part of that was due to the fact that they lost a challenge earlier in the half, so they're down to one timeout. So instead of punting and taking your chance with the 2-minute warning and that one timeout, they decided to go for it on fourth down, and Aaron Rodgers, his pass to an intent, I believe it was James Jones, or Greg Jones, I forget which ones, it bounced into third, and bounced up, making it incomplete and turnover on downs. You would have thought, okay, game's pretty much in the bag right there, but Arizona, for some reason, on a second down play with time running on the clock, they decided to go for the kill and throw the ball. Now, granted, it was a one-on-one play. It was to Larry Fitzgerald on the sideline, and some might argue, hey, it should have been ruled a pass interference the way he had contact with the defender on the other side. But, there was no flag. The ball, of course, fell incomplete, and it stopped the clock. So you saved the Packers some time, and without them having to use a timeout, and it wasn't even a 2-minute warning yet. So after all that, Arizona kicked a field goal. We're up 7, and of course, it gave Aaron Rodgers some time where he could do something here. Didn't look promising. In fact, came down to a point where it was 4th and 20 for Green Bay on this final drive here. Needed to complete a first down, and then Rodgers somehow, some way, scrambling like a wild man out of the back of his end zone, literally, found Janis deep down the field and got the pass complete to him, and he actually well inside Arizona territory. I think it was close to the 30-yard line or so. And so, in the midst of that happening, Green Bay scrambles up. Rodgers at first looks like he's going to spike the ball, but then contemplates, hesitates, and decides to run a play. Then Richard Rodgers, the tight end who made the miracle Hail Mary catch in Detroit against the Lions, messes up and doesn't get himself set properly against the formation of the offensive line, which in turn causes a 5-yard penalty. Now, they're lucky that was a live ball foul instead of a dead ball foul, because that would have run off 10 seconds on the clock there. So after that, Rodgers tries to scramble out and has to throw the ball away. 5 seconds left. And then, finally, on the very last play of regulation, Rodgers takes the snap, gets back, scrambles around as he greatly does and always does, uses his legs, sets himself up, but still, with heavy pressure coming his way, just says, F it, wings it, just flings that ball, just corks it down the field as much as he possibly can, his body turning and contorting, and well as getting hit by the defender on the play, and somehow, some way, Janis is able to leap up, catch the ball at the high point over Patrick Peterson, comes down with it, has to go through not just coming down with the ball, but make sure he holds on to the whole process of the catch, almost gets it knocked out of his hands by the Arizona defender, and after a lengthy review, the play, of course, stands as called. It was a touchdown. It was close. It was crazy. It was eccentric, but it was a touchdown. Now, looking back on this game in hindsight, you have to wonder, should Green Bay have gone for 2 instead of taking the point and going into overtime? Because I think Arizona, they were just, the whole stadium, the fans, the players, they were stunned, and I think mentally they were sacked by what they had just witnessed. I would not have blamed Mike McCarthy at all if he had decided, ride the momentum, because that momentum was as hot as you could possibly get, and go for 2 right then and there. I would not blame him. It's the playoffs. You're on the road. You're probably weren't favored to begin with, so I would say take your chances and see what happens. Crazier things have happened, obviously. But they do the safe route. Some would say the smart route. Take the extra point, go to overtime. And then we weren't even done. We were just halfway there with all this insanity. The coin, if you look on the replay, as the folks at NBC would show, the coin didn't flip. It literally went up, fell down, and plopped. And,
we all saw it.
We were all thinking, oh my God, this is Phil Luckett, Pittsburgh, Jerome Bettis at the Silverdome Part 2 all over again. Or even earlier this year with the Jets and the Patriots. But as we all saw in the replay, no, the coin did not flip in any form capacity, so the referee had to reflip it, and of course it came up favoring the Cardinals. Now we're thinking, what could possibly top this all wicked mounts of craziness that we've just seen. And then on the very first play from scrimmage, shades of what Tim Tebow and the Broncos did to the Steelers in 2012. The very first play from scrimmage, Palmer gets out of the pocket, avoids a sack, throws across his body, finds Fitzgerald by himself, and then Fitzgerald proceeds to take this one and just scampers on a 70-yard-plus-yard sprint all the way down the field. Everybody's going crazy. Fans, players, announcers even. Chris Collinsworth and Al Michaels, they must have had a joy just watching this game from start to finish tonight. And Fitzgerald almost ended it right then and there. Gets to about the 5 or 4 yard line, gets tripped up right as he gets close. Very first play from scrimmage, I called this while watching my mother watch. You're going to go for the corner fade route. Like sometimes, like if this was the Lions, you would do the same thing. Throw it up to your big 6 foot tall, 6'5", 6'4", 6'5" receiver, corner in the end zone and fade route. They tried it there. Ball was just out of his reach, and I think besides Fitzgerald was going to get doubled thanks to the safety help coming from Sean Clinton Dix on the top side. So very next play, Bruce Arians or somebody, they had a hell of a call, mixed it up, took the pass out of the shotgun, and then Carson Palmer on a shovel pass, the old Tim Tebow Florida special, just pitches it on a simple pitch and catch to Larry Fitzgerald, who then bustles in for the game-winning walk-off touchdown to cap off and end another crazy night of playoff football. It was outstanding. It was wonderful. It was blood-pumping, whatever superlatives and adjectives you want to use to describe this game. It was all that and then some. And then again, for the second Saturday night in a row, leaves me and probably sure everyone else wondering, how the hell can they top that? We shall see.
Yeah, and as I mentioned before, we all saw it on that game-tying touchdown. Yeah, normally I would have gone for the extra point, but in that case, I would have gone for 2 and tried to win it with considering the amount of momentum the Packers had after that Jeff Janis catch on that Hail Mary pass by Aaron Rodgers for a touchdown as time expired. Sometimes you just gotta win it like the hard way, especially when you're on the road in a playoff game, a very important playoff game in the divisional playoff round against the Arizona Cardinals. You're coming back to try to win it in any way you can. You have to take that chance, and that could have, and if you're the Green Bay Packers, that could have saved your season had you won it with the 2-point conversion being good, if you went for it. So tomorrow, the Seahawks play in Carolina against the Panthers at 1:05, Seattle. Then the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Denver Broncos at 4:40. The Seattle-Carolina game is on Fox. Pittsburgh-Denver is on CBS. We already previewed those games.
Yeah, it should be noted, Big Ben Roethlisberger has a separated shoulder on his throwing arm, as we repeated, of course, earlier in the previous episode. Tony Brown, of course, has a concussion that he suffered, that brutal hit from Vontaze Burfict last week. By the way, I got to point this out. What was one play, was one call that really irritated me early on, and it was Denny Amendola of the Patriots, who, in my opinion, should have been ejected of some sort of capacity.
Should have been
he
ejected.
He was flagged for unnecessary roughness, but he led with his head. Like, literally, I don't care how
That's targeting
or what. That is targeting. If this was college, his ass would have been out already. So it'd be very interesting to see how the media would react to. If you're going to villainize Perfect for what he did, then I think you should do the same for Tam Amendola here, even though he is on the Patriots. Okay, so you got to call a spade and do what's fair. That's my regard of that. But speaking of that, of vicious hits to the head, Antonio Brown, of course, is out with a concussion, so it leaves you wondering, can Pittsburgh do the unthinkable and, as being deemed up than they are on the road as a 6th seed, pull off an upset of upsets and beat the Broncos here? It'd be interesting to see. It should be noted, by the way, I am so far 2 for 2 in my weekend picks regarding picking the home teams for the playoffs in this in this divisional round, I should say. I think you picked. I don't know who you picked. I'm pretty sure. I don't know which one the games you picked, but I think you might have gotten those wrong. I know I picked all the home teams to win their games this weekend. So far, I'm 2 for 2.
All right. Well, to be more fair on the Vontae's perfect targeting hit on Antonio Brown, if they eject him and then suspend him for 3 games, that would be like the most fair, the fairest punishment that any NFL player would receive. So moving on, we go to hockey. The Red Wings are home against the Philadelphia Flyers Sunday at 7:30 on NBCSN. We have a preview from Adam Keimelman, an NHL.com deputy managing editor, publishing it on DetroitRedWings.com. Red Wings are 23-14-7. Flyers are 19-15-8. The Red Wings should win this one. Timu Pulkkinen, left winger, will be back in the lineup from his shoulder injury, according to head coach Jeff Blashill. It'll be Pulkkinen's first game since he dislocated his right shoulder December 3rd against the Arizona Coyotes in a 5-1 win at Joe Louis Arena. And of course, Peter Mrazek will start in goal. Alexei Marchenko will be a healthy scratch. That's a defenseman. And for the Flyers, Michael Neuwirth is expected to start in net Sunday after Steve Mason made 31 saves in a 3-2 shootout loss to the New York Rangers on Saturday. The Flyers are playing back-to-back games. Steve Mason and Michael Neuwirth are a goaltending duo. You gotta watch what Neuwirth does, especially in net. So the Red Wings like to work harder and play well against Neuwirth. Try to confuse him more. No easy shots against him. No easy shots to him. The Flyers outshot the Rangers 36-31 and rallied from a 2-1 deficit after 2 periods, scoring on the power play to get a point. The Flyers have been 0 for 12 on the power play prior to Wayne Simmons forward scoring in the 3rd period to tie it at 2. Well, I wouldn't call it a rally since it's only a 1-goal deficit. It's too small of a one goal point or run deficit is too small of a deficit to rally by. You just have to get one. That's not much of a rally. Doesn't count as a rally in my opinion, in my view. But there's your preview. Flyers at Red Wings Sunday on NBCSN at 7:30. Art Regner on Twitter opinionated that Jimmy Howard is a perfect backup goalie.
You're crazy! You're crazy? You're crazy! Are you crazy?
Hello, Howard is a backup. Howard is a bad backup goalie. It's time for him to go. For Art Regner to name Jimmy Coward Howard a perfect backup goaltender would be so absolutely absurd and asinine that I had to fire shots at him on Twitter, and he deserved it. No regrets. Next, I blocked him. Then Brian Cavanaugh butted in and told me not to be hostile just because Art Regner was speaking an opinion. I tried telling him that his opinion was so crazy that it set me off. Brian kept arguing with me in public, so I also told him to stay out of it because he was out of line. I blocked BCav as well on Twitter. I mean, I used to like Art Regner when I was younger, but now the last few years, I have known how very delusional, cocky, and arrogant he is. I mean, come on, guys.
I don't know. I think everyone is entitled to an opinion.
Right. But
I like Art. You know, I think he's one of
me too.
The ones I can tolerate the most in the Detroit sports medium. Of course, I have to disagree with his opinion. I think Howard has played very, very poorly his last few games. So, calling him a quote-unquote perfect backup goaltender, no, it's quite a bit of a laughable take if you've seen his last few games.
Man.
Yeah, that was just not the right time to make that kind of statement. I will say, though, I think the blocking him was a bit much. You could definitely disagree with him, but I think the block was a bit much. That's just me from my perspective. Same thing with BCAV.
Yeah.
But I think your anger on Howard's term being termed that way, it was justified because the way he has played the last few games does not deserve anyone to be calling to certify or christen him as quote unquote the perfect backup. No, it's just not the case at all.
Nobody is perfect, for goodness sakes. That's the truth. I mean, and Art Regner just keeps on coddling Howard. I mean, what on earth is that about?
Where is your honor, dirtbag? You are an absolute disgrace.
Position because he, like myself, wants to see Jimmy Howard do so well. Kind of feels a little bit sympathy for him because seeing how, like I mentioned before, he was able to perform very well for us a few years back in some key playoff series, especially in elimination games. That was the one thing that was remarkable about him. Like, he had a very high win percentage in elimination games. But that was 5-6 years ago. You know, we got to talk about what's right here in the now. What's in the now is Jimmy Howard has been very below average. He's been not serviceable, not adequate. He has stunk this year. That's all there is to it. So you can't just look at what he's done this year. You got, granted, you want to, if you're talking about in terms of totality, what his whole career has been, yeah, you can call him a serviceable a 5 backup even. But to look at what he has done the recent stretch of games and then still say, oh, he'd be the perfect backup goaltender, like, no, you just can't do it. Not this time. So while I disagree with the statement, I can definitely see it being of him just looking back at Howard's career in general and just really just picking a very inopportune time. Bad timing with that statement.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, Art Regner as of late has been mostly correct, but with him to say Howard is a perfect backup goaltender, that just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's absurdly insane. I mean, that's just plain stupid and outrageous to say that. Art Regner has been a Jimmy Howard coddler beside all of his correctness in Detroit sports, which I give credit to him for. Don't get me wrong. But Art Regner has got to stop coddling Howard. Okay? Do a lot more extra research, if you will. Just for once, please. That's all we ask. So the Red Wings have 2 straight NBCSN games. Sunday against the Flyers at 7:30, and then Wednesday at home against the Blues at 8. Mrazek starts them both. Howard is tradable. I even heard on Detroit's Top Talent on Detroit Sports 105.1 that they would trade Howard. You know, those 2 new guys. I still don't even know their names, but I agreed with them on that. Have you?
You gotta get back what you can. Get back as much as you can. I like Jimmy, but like if I can get back a lot of serviceable commodities in return, yeah, I'd make the deal.
I mean, I used to be okay with Jimmy Howard, but lately, I have lost my patience. I have lost all my patience with him. I think it's time for the coward to get out of my sight for good. He is no longer any use to me on this Red Wings roster, especially if I was a head coach. Anyway, moving on to the Pistons.
Left sideline, 3, and he answers.
The Pistons smashed the defending NBA champion Golden State Warriors 113-95 on Ben Wallace Night at the Palace of Auburn Hills. Pistons got off to a great start, but the Golden State Warriors took the lead after 1, but the Pistons kept surging and led at halftime, 65-49 at halftime. Third quarter was a little dicey. It was a seesaw between the two. But but then the fourth quarter, the Pistons pulled away and held the Warriors to under 100 points, 113-95. At halftime, Ben Wallace's jersey number was retired and hoisted to the rafters at the Palace of Auburn Hills. How memorable was that?
Yeah, it was quite completing in very full circle, and quite rewarding, you would say, because remember where Ben has come from coming from a lowly college such as Virginia Union University, to now, and of course coming over in that trade from Orlando, to then becoming basically what I would equate to is the heart and soul of that Pistons team during their run towards an NBA championship. Aside from Chauncey Billups, probably be the first person you would ask will be on the answer on the minds of most casual fans who would say, "Hey, who do you remember from that 2004 Detroit Pistons team?" They would say Ben Wallace. So I think it's well deserved. It's been a while coming, but it's well deserved. And congratulations, Ben. He's definitely deserved it. He probably won't be a Hall of Fame, necessarily have a Hall of Fame resume, but to what he meant to this team during the time he was there and to the fans, a well-worthy accomplishment and a well-worthy reward. So congrats to Ben on that. Now, as on to the game, I would say that really, listen, the way Steph Curry's performed this year, he was going to get his no matter what. The real key was making sure that nobody else killed you, or if they were going to score, make sure it was just him and Curry, nobody else. You couldn't let Draymond Green get off. You couldn't let Harrison Barnes get off. Iguodala get off. Those guys. Sure, the Splash Brothers, Curry and Thompson, they did what they had to do, but that was just that. Literally, practically nobody else. Maybe Francis Ezeli, but he's a bench player. Nobody else contributed for Golden State. And that was all that Detroit needed. Whereas, compared to that, right, Clay and Thompson, they were the only players, aside from Ezeli, to score double figures in any sense for Golden State. In fact, Curry and Thompson were the only two on Golden State starting 5 to get the double figures. Whereas all of Detroit's 5 starters got double digits for their points. Ersan Ilyasova with 10, Marcus Morris with 16, Andre Drummond with 14, and our 2 guards, Jackson and Caldwell Pope, with 20 each. And you had even better bench production. Aaron Baines 6 for 6 from the field with 12 points at a plus-minus of 15. 4 rebounds as well. He contributed, and 2 blocks. Contributed greatly tonight. Drummond, still had his struggles from the line, but still had a monster game. 21 rebounds, had 3 blocks. It was a very, very well-productive game. A much-needed win because you had just lost 2 straight. You didn't want to lose three in a row going into what I call pivotal game once again against the rival Bulls, knowing potentially how the rankings might be within the Eastern Conference, since they seem to be changing almost daily, it seems. So this is a big win. And quite fitting that you would get a win on this night against this particular team. Much needed and much deserved, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. That would like skyrocket their momentum, in my opinion. Pistons and Bulls moving on. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Martin Luther King Jr. Day at 3:30. It's a divisional game. Last time they met, it was a quadruple overtime game, and the Pistons won 147 to 144. We might expect the same thing, except the Pistons might ride more momentum than they had the last time they met with the Bulls at United Center.
Well, I won't be expecting another 4 overtime special.
No, me
but
neither.
I expect this to be another close competitive game. Jimmy Butler is doing wonders. He's picking up where Derrick Rose might be dropping off in terms of offensive productivity. Paul Gasol is still a monster at the boards, averaging almost 11 rebounds a game. So it's really going to take a combined United effort from Detroit's own stars and role players.
Like Andre Drummond.
Once again, Drummond especially. He's going to have another big game himself. Don't get into foul trouble like he did against San Antonio. That'll be a big key. So as long as he's on that floor, I think we'll be fine in terms of paint production and getting our rebounds. So it's him being on the floor is going to be needed in a game like this. So it'll be nice to see them get a win get a win here to again potentially move up more in the Eastern Conference standings. So go for it best in that situation.
I also like to add on that Joakim Noah will be out 4 to 6 months with a really bad elbow injury. What was it called again? Yeah. Hang on a second. Let me look on my Facebook profile here.
That's a big injury.
Yeah, huge loss for the Bulls, for the Chicago Bulls of all teams. Let me see here. Scrolling down, it was suffering a separated shoulder in Friday's game, not an elbow, a shoulder. It was his right shoulder. 4 to 6 months. He's out for the rest of the season. It's January, February, March, April, May.
He's out for the rest of the regular season.
Yeah.
And the earliest he could come back potentially would be in May.
But
that's right. So, but
probably like the second round of the NBA playoffs.
Maybe, but that's even if Chicago makes it that far. You never know what could happen in a first round series. So this is a major loss for that Bulls team.
Major loss. We'll see if the Pistons can take advantage of that. It's all about competition as we speak. Moving over to college basketball, 4 college basketball in the mitten scores I like to mention. Eastern Michigan Eagles lose to the Bowling Green Falcons 84-79. My CMU Chippewas let the Buffalo Bulls roll away 74-61 in New York. Oakland beats Detroit Mercy. Golden Grizzlies beat the Titans 86-82. And the Western Michigan Broncos take care of the Northern Illinois Huskies 83-69 in Kalamazoo. And then we have Michigan State at Wisconsin at 1:30 on CBS. We already previewed that. Michigan Wolverines at Iowa Hawkeyes, 4:30 on BTN. We already previewed that. Now let's wrap this up with not wrap it up, but we got 5 questions at the end of this. But let's go to the Tigers.
That one is long gone.
The Tigers and shortstop Jose Iglesias avoid arbitration by signing a 1-year, $2.1 million contract. They also miss out on first baseman and designated hitter Chris Davis agreeing on a 7-year, $161 million contract with his similar team, the Baltimore Orioles. Tigers were contemplating using Chris Davis in the outfield, in the corner in left field, had they claimed him from the Orioles. But now they're down to Yoenis Cespedes and Justin Upton.
I think it was a good move for them financially, at least, because when you see the amount of money that Davis re-upped for with Baltimore.
Yeah, that's outrageous.
Yeah, wow. Now, so it still leaves you open what Detroit can do. Do you still try to pony up as much as you can to go after Cespedes? Do you try to go after Upton, or you take the huge financial safe route? And despite my better judgment, go after Ryan Braverman maybe. So it's another thing to consider. But,
that's right. I almost forgot about him.
Yeah. So, but back to the Iglesias deal, it's very nice to see avoid that. And keep him back here for at least a little while longer, for at least one more year longer. Katie Strang repeated, or not repeated, but reported rather. Now that just leaves JD Martinez in terms of getting together his contract. Both sides will submit respective salary figures, and barring a contract agreement, of course. And the Tigers and Martinez, his camp, they can continue to negotiate up until the arbitration hearing, which is scheduled to start. Could happen anywhere between February 1st and February 20th. So we got some time together to get something done here. So
before pitchers and catchers report.
Yeah, do what we can to get this deal taken care of, so we don't have to focus so much on it the duration of the season.
That's right. So we wrap this up as always with 5 questions.
It's time for 5 questions with Taylor the Gator Phillips.
Question number 1: will Bob Quinn fire Caldwell after 2016 if the Lions have yet another losing season?
Yes, I will say yes. It's short, straight to the point, but of course, I got to give more detail here. He will see up close and personal some of Caldwell's atrociously bad, inept decision-making that will cost the Lions more than one game. It will lead to another unproductive season where the talents of the roster are wasted yet again for another year. Most importantly, Calvin Johnson. It will end in another sub-500 year, another missed trip to the playoffs, and I think Quinn, if he's smart, as I hope he is, will realize the writing is on the wall and terminate Jim Caldwell.
Next question.
Question number 2. Which 2 remaining teams in the NFL will headline Super Bowl 50, may I ask ahead of time?
I think I'm going to have to say New England. If Seattle wins, tomorrow against Carolina, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a rematch. But I'm going to say New England. I want to pick Carolina because I think Cam Newton has been unbelievable this season. But I'm going to say New England and Arizona because Larry Fitzgerald is another guy I like. And I like to see him get another crack at trying to win a Super Bowl. And after the game he played tonight against the Packers, I wouldn't mind seeing him get back to the game's biggest stage again.
Everybody's hungry, that's for sure.
Next question.
Question number 3, how big is the Pistons' big win over the Golden State Warriors, and will it fuel them for the rest of the season?
Rest of the season, that's I'm not sure, it's a bit difficult to say because, we still have a huge number of games left in this season. It's not compared to what we would see, like, say, for instance, in football, where you have such a short, limited window of games to complete. But it's a big win, don't get me wrong, in terms of for keeping pace in the standings, and just lets you know that on any given night we can beat anybody in this entire league. So it can give you that sort of mental edge in terms of confidence brewing. So I would say on the safe side, you would hope so.
We got an update on Brandon Jennings. He left the game with a jammed ankle.
Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah.
I think he was listed as day to day, so hopefully it's not too serious because we just got him back from that Achilles injury. You would hate to have to lose him again for any more extended period of time. But if it's not too serious, I would still take a precautionary measure and just rest him as much as possible.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. We'd hate to lose him for another long period of time, just like we did last season.
Next question.
Just like last year, our chances of making playoffs this year rides on making sure that Jennings stays as healthy as possible.
Next question.
Question number 4. Will the Tigers still be able to re-sign J.D. Martinez to a long-term deal after he filed for arbitration?
I say yes. I think both sides are aware of the type of year that JD had last year, and they want to make sure that he's well taken care of. So that being said, I think this is the smart thing financially for JD to do, and I think the Tigers will be able to, come up with a healthy enough offer, or meet somewhere in the middle with JD's camp, and sign him to a very reasonable and very lengthy deal that'll keep him in Detroit past next season.
Okay.
Next question.
And finally, question number 5. And if the Tigers run out of free agent corner outfielders, what do they do?
If both Cespedes and Justin Upton are taken, like I said, you might be left with no choice but to go with Ryan Rayburn. As much as I hate to say it, but if his numbers last year are not an anomaly, and he can be similar to that type of production this year, and of course very well he has experience in left field, right? He played some left field during his time here in Detroit. I'd bite the bullet and sign him. I would hate to, but if Upton and Cespedes are gone, I probably have no other choice.
All right, well, that's it for 5 questions, and that wraps up episode 188 of the Detroit Sports Truth. Ed, thanks so much. We'll talk Monday late night on Martin Luther King Jr. night at midnight. Back to the normal times we go, huh?
Yeah, so hopefully, nothing big comes up like me getting sick again. I hate to have that falling on any of us. So, let's hope we have another great games to talk about, from tomorrow to talk about on Monday night. So, thank you, Taylor. And you have a good night, and you too, the listeners out in podcast land.
Yep, thanks, Ed. And if there's anything you guys want more of or less of on our podcast, please let us know. We'll talk to you Monday night at midnight. TTFN, ta-ta for now.
Bon appétit.